Hello, welcome to Tuesdays with Tony. Today I want to talk about my imposter syndrome. I mean, let's face it, right? We all get in our heads. We're our own worst critics. I'm constantly doubting myself, my abilities, what I can share. I can't put my foot behind my head, right? I can't do half the poses in BKS Iyengar's light on yoga. So why am I teaching yoga? You know, I don't have stories like Charles Dickens or the classic How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, but I wrote 2 books. I don't even sit on the AMEC committee in terms of writing AMS 2750 in the heat treat aerospace industry, so why am I writing for this heat treat magazine in the quality counts section? It's the classic imposter syndrome. It's that self-doubt that gets in the way that blocks us from doing the things that we really want to do and, to be honest, should be doing, right? There's no reason why we can't be doing these things as long as you follow these 2 things that I'm about to share. This is how I get through my imposter syndrome. But there was some advice that I was given years back when I was in college. I had a little stint of grad school, for those of you know, from the first book that I wrote. And before I dropped out, I was a teaching assistant for a junior level transport phenomena course. And the professor at the time was Professor Hal Brody, and I always loved what he told me. He said, "Tony, before you step in front of the classroom, you always want to think to yourself, how can I be 3 steps ahead of the students?" Now, I literally have taken that to heart in everything that I do, and I tried to think of, okay, well, how do I be 3 steps ahead of any particular question that might be asked in the classroom? So, of course, this is where I get stuck, right? So I have a pathway to get myself out of the imposter syndrome, to have these 3 steps to be thinking about in terms of questions that people might ask, students might ask in a yoga class, maybe in the industry about 2750, whatever it may be, maybe it's related to my books. But then on the other side, it leads to this idea that you have to know everything, right? And of course, that'll never be the case. No one can know everything, right? So how do we resolve this sort of being 3 steps ahead of your students, not that they're yours, being 3 steps ahead of the students? You know, and despite, having 4 shelves of books that I've read for yoga and working with top editors, from all around to, help polish my books, and even working with an editor in terms of, before I launched the articles for Thermal Processing Magazine, I still always feel like it's not enough, right? And again, it's not to say that we need to know everything. I still believe that it's important to put in the work, right? You can't just say that I'm gonna be a tremendous golfer without practicing, right? So we obviously have to do the work to get to this state to where we can actually play the game. But I'm always afraid of that one question someone's gonna ask and I'm not gonna know. So I really want to encourage those that are teaching, that want to engage in a topic with others, to read Courage to Teach by Parker Palmer. Excellent book. I'm going to share some things that I love from it that helps me get through my imposter syndrome of not feeling good enough. So the first way that Parker has the reader look at a particular topic is this, right? Most people think that, for the given subject, it's really an object to be obtained, right? And then we have this so-called expert, right? Whatever that means. And then the people, the students, what have you, are more or less the amateurs, right? And he says, wait a minute, this isn't really a good model. The problem is we create what's called these barriers, where sort of the objective items only flow down one way, but we have subjective experiences that also need to be a part of this learning cycle. So instead of looking at this particular model of how a topic should be engaged, he suggests the alternative. So Parker Palmer instead really suggests that the classroom should be viewed like this. So for a given topic, really we should look at it as just a subject to be explored, right? That's the center of attention. And maybe you have someone in the class that knows a little bit about it. Maybe there's that student that can do that, split, or maybe put their foot behind their head. Maybe there's a student that really doesn't know anything about personal development. Maybe there's just the heat treat operator that still wants to learn about quality requirements as it relates to heat treat. And when you start to look at the classroom as these sort of knowers engaging in the pool of knowledge on a particular subject, you start to see that the connections aren't just one way, right? You can start to make connections with other people in the classroom, both on an objective level and a subjective level. Because let's face it, in a yoga class, you're always going to have the student that, oh, I just signed up for my first yoga class, and someone doing it for 20 years. Even when people are reading books, maybe it's the first book that they pick up, maybe it's the 1,000th book they pick up. And then even in heat treat, right? Maybe it's a operator that's just starting off reading 2750, trying to read the quality requirements. Maybe it's someone who's been doing it for 40 years and it literally wrote the first revision of AMS 2750, right? So who knows? But when you start to look at the topic as a subject, it really changes. It changed my look on how I could now engage with that subject. It's not about me being that expert and holding that object above me that, hey, I can put my foot behind my head, therefore I'm an expert and all of you amateurs need to look up to me. No, it's really about seeing the subject and just kind of like floating. I really view it as we're all sort of swimming in the pool of knowledge. So one thing that's helped me over the years, kind of on top of what Parker Palmer really got me thinking about in terms of the classroom and engaging with a particular topic, is that we're always going to feel these like emotions pulling us, right? We can call it the butterflies, whether we're anxious, whether we're nervous, whatever it may be. And I'll take a lesson that I learned when I was competing in golf years ago, probably in one of those books up there with all the golf books that I used to read, was that it stated you're always going to have the butterflies when you step onto the first tee. But when you get them flying into formation, then you're ready to go. Now remember that success is not about good luck, it's good skills. So good skills, team. We'll see you next time. Thank you.